I call this meeting the July 22nd, 2024 meeting of the Catawba County Board of Education to order. Just momentarily, we will stand and have a moment of silence, which will be followed by the Pledge of Allegiance by Mr. Brian Abernathy. So at this time, if we could please stand for a moment of silence. To the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible. We were just discussing that this, I don't want to cast a pall on any educators' summer, but this will be our last meeting before school starts back. When we convene next month, it'll actually be the first day of school. We do miss our ROTC troops, and also the room looked bare, and Dr. Barnett, the perceptive one, realized we don't have any artwork on the walls. So it'll be nice to get the kids back. So at this time, we will entertain approval of the minutes for today's, for the June 24th, 2024. Those have been distributed via email, and I think there's a hard copy in your folder. So I will give you a second to look over those if need be, and I will entertain a motion on the June 24 minutes.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the minutes as presented to us.
Thank you, Dr. Barnett. There is a motion on the floor.
A second.
And a second. Thank you, Mr. Sigmund. Any discussion? All in favor of approval of the June 24 minutes, please signify by raising your hand. And that is unanimous. At this time, Dr. Stover, the adjustment and approval of the agenda.
Thank you, Chairman Taylor, members of the board. The only one adjustment we're asking for tonight would be new business number 11. Mr. Moore will be presenting a quote for our new intercom system at Clyde Campbell Elementary School.
Okay. I would like to also request that we add a new business number 12. This is simply a discussion on the email that the board members, I think, received from Mr. Durian, community member in the Sherrills Ford community, relative to the traffic there at Sherrills Ford Elementary and Island Point Road. If we could just have it listed as an item for discussion. Any other adjustments? Hearing none, I will entertain a motion to approve the agenda as adjusted.
I make a motion, we approve the agenda with the noted adjustments.
Thank you, Ms. Sotomayor.
And I'll second that.
And a second by Ms. Richards. Thank you. All in favor of approval of the adjusted agenda, please signify by raising your hand. And that is unanimous. Thank you. Dr. Stover, Superintendent's report.
Thank you, Chairman Taylor. If you'd like to come out front, we've got several heroes with us tonight, but specifically two heroes with us that saved a child's life during our Summer Reading Academy. So we'd like to recognize them this evening. Tonight is something we don't usually have to do. We're thankful that we don't have to do this a lot. But this is one of those stories that was never a story because of two of our staff members here tonight. Miss Dellinger, who's a teacher at Mountain View, was at reading camp teaching for us at Blackburn. And Miss Kelly Parker, she is one of our teacher assistants at Blackburn, and she was doing our reading camp as well. And we had a young lady who got choked on a mozzarella stick. And so Miss Dellinger was, I believe, the one doing the Heimlich, and Miss Parker was clearing her airways. And that young lady came back to school the next day and thanked them for saving their life. And so for that, we are extremely grateful. Just one of the many things our staff does. And I know you guys know it, but we just want to honor them here tonight. We want to thank our administrators for being here. I know Ms. Adams, thank you for the email, Ms. Minton Cable, Ms. Hauser, thank you for being here. Appreciate you guys' support of that activity as well. That being said, what a joyous occasion to celebrate. Ms. Dellinger and Ms. Parker, come on up.
Good job. Good job. Thank you.
We want to forward. You up here? Down 3, 2. Stay right there. Hold on. Thank you.
I just wanted to give you guys an update. Am I okay? Do I need to hit anything? Okay, I wanted to give you an update on some litigation that is out there. As you all may know, the Biden administration imposed new regulations with regard to Title IX. Those new regulations were scheduled to go into effect in August, and there has been a tremendous amount of litigation trying to stop that litigation. The most controversial point is that the litigation expands or clarifies that the definition of sex in sex discrimination includes sexual orientation and gender identity. That has not been clear before. And as a result of those regs being passed, as I said, many pieces of litigation have been filed. In particular, the Female Athletics United and Young Americans Foundation and Moms for Liberty have filed this particular lawsuit in Kansas. On July the 3rd, I believe it was, the federal district court judge in Kansas entered a preliminary injunction stopping those regs from going into effect in any school system where a member of Moms for Liberty or their child, a member of the Female Athletics United or their child, a member of Young Americans Foundation or the member's child. The injunction applied to, it prevented the government from enforcing those regs against any school in which those members or their child were enrolled. So, and in addition, I think the judge entered an order saying that by July 15th, those three organizations, the plaintiffs, had to file a list of all of those organizations that would be affected. The list that was completed by the three plaintiffs, for the most part, did not include many public schools at all. They were mostly charter schools and private schools. Then last Friday, I think, not last Friday, the Friday before, July 12th, before the deadline approached for Moms for Liberty and the other two organizations were to provide that list, they filed a motion, the plaintiffs filed a motion to expand, asking the judge to expand that list to any school system in which any member of that organization or that member's child resided. Well, that list blew up because it included Catawba County. Included, I think the list was 36 pages long as far as the number of, can't remember exactly the number of schools, maybe over 850. I think that's the number. That was the news last week. And then on July 19th, which was Friday, after we were hearing and everybody was buzzing about that injunction in the new motion, that same judge in Kansas denied the motion to expand the injunction to include the counties where those members or their children resided. So that's the status update for it. I don't expect this to be the end of this litigation. There are other judges, I think at least 4 other judges who are in the process of or are entering injunctions. The question is if and when that would apply to North Carolina and Catawba County schools. So we'll see.
I have a question. Okay, when you said it expanded, I guess that it had changed, I guess by July 19th, are you referring to, okay, so if parents had signed up for the Moms of Liberty or one of the other organizations, they were actually considered exempt, I guess, or under their, under as part of that injunction, even though they weren't in that state?
What they, and I'm trying to refashion this in my mind to answer your question. To clarify, the plaintiffs, those 3 plaintiffs, which includes Moms for Liberty, asked for an injunction of the whole rule for everybody. The judge granted it, but limited the injunction initially. They said it won't be enforced right now against Moms for Liberty members, Female Athletics United members, Young Americans Foundation, or their children that are enrolled in a particular school. And the judge at that time asked for a list of what they said to the plaintiffs, what schools are you or your children enrolled in? And they gave a list. That list was mostly charter schools and private schools. Then the plaintiffs asked for it to be expanded to include any place that they reside, the members or their children. And that was denied. So right now it's still in place with regard to where they are.
Okay, so I guess what my question is that, okay, so I was under the impression that since these organizations were nationwide,
Yeah.
that there was only like so many states that actually had the injunction. So, but then the Moms of Liberty and I guess it was American Foundation and those, since they were national organizations, that any of the parents that were also members, since they were nationwide, that they would still be considered under this injunction, even though like we're in North Carolina, we weren't one of the states that actually had was a part of that injunction initially. However, since we had moms, like if we had parents that signed
Yes.
up that had children, so does that still apply?
That's what the Moms for Liberty and the other 2 plaintiffs were arguing. The injunction is still in place, meaning it has, but it only applies to school systems, or actually not school systems, schools that have one of those members or their children enrolled there. It does not apply. He denied the injunction.
As
with
I
regard to
understand
that.
it, and correct me if I'm wrong,
I'm sorry.
the initial injunction was against any school who's had a child or a parent connected from one of those three organizations. They were asking that it be expanded to LEAs, the whole LEA.
Where they
if
reside,
any one.
to
and
the
the
schools where they
judge that
reside. Yeah,
Granted the initial injunction, denied the expansion request.
exactly. The expansion is denied, but it's still in place with regard to that initial list, which included, we weren't on that initial list. I mean, North Carolina was not on it in any fashion, even a charter school or a private school or a public school.
So that would mean that there were no students affected, no students belonging to members from those organizations were affected in Catawba County,
Right.
which is primarily what we're
Right.
concerned with.
In fact, in North Carolina,
Okay.
there was
Thank you.
nobody on the list for that initial injunction.
And that is subject to appeal, of course.
Yes, it certainly is. And like I said, this is not over. There are other lawsuits out there. So the question really is, there have been some other changes in Title IX regs that are not controversial. They have to do with the process of doing a Title IX investigation, allowing principals to actually do it as opposed to a central person like Maria Ballard, for example, is our designated Title IX coordinator. There are some good things about it that are not controversial. And so the question really is, should school boards, even that aren't affected by this Kansas litigation, go ahead and pass policies that have the new regs, to update their policies to include the new regulations. And of course, we'll be talking about that at the conference coming up, but there is a division across North Carolina attorneys as to some of them are saying we need to go ahead and update our policies. And the others are saying we need to update our policies and perhaps reserve that issue of expanding the definition of sex to gender identity and sexual orientation. And then others are saying don't pass it until all this is settled.
Can I make sure that I am clear on this? Because I'm not sure if I am. Okay, so you're saying that with this injunction that, okay, because I know that they had ruled that Moms of Liberty and the American Foundation and whatever that other organization was, that they, since they were within those states, they automatically were, exempt from this Title IX under the Biden administration. However, whenever the Moms of Liberty went and asked for that injunction, you're telling me that now that it doesn't matter whether it was on a national level, since they are national organizations.
That
Okay.
makes a difference. Yeah.
Okay, so, but we should still fall under that. Is that not right? Because
No.
why not? Because
the injunction was limited. The injunction that
Okay,
the
when-
judge entered.
exactly. So when was that exactly?
The initial injunction was July 3rd. And then they had until July 15th to
Right.
give the judge a list of those schools, not systems, but the schools in which a member of those three organizations or their child resided. They gave that list. It did not include any North Carolina school. It only included charter schools and private schools, but none of those were even in North Carolina.
Okay, so
Then they
the,
asked for it to be expanded to say anywhere any school.
Yeah, I thought, okay, so I was under the impression, I'm listening to what you're saying. Okay, so I was under the impression that that they were trying to get it expanded to the districts, not just per school.
I'm sure they will.
That's what they wanted, but that was denied.
Okay, so then we're still not under any obligation, or it doesn't apply to each school that has a Moms of Liberty that signed up or was under the Moms of Liberty membership. So you're telling me that's null and void now?
Now, if one of our schools has a child who is a child of one of those three organizations, then we would apply to that school.
Enrolled in a school, yeah, in our school.
In other words, we don't have standing according to the judge's ruling.
Okay, so but we still do have children that have parents that are enrolled under Moms of Liberty, so they would be exempt from that currently,
Exempt from,
from the mandates for the Title IX.
they didn't list, those three organizations did not list a single school in the state of North Carolina, whether it was charter, public, or private, that applied.
Okay, so so you said that Catawba County was listed though.
No, Catawba County is listed on the request to expand. the
Okay.
injunction.
Okay,
Yeah, but that was denied. So right now, it only applies to schools where a plaintiff member or their child is enrolled. And they gave the list. So that came from the plaintiffs.
But stay tuned. This story's not
Yeah,
up.
it's not over. That's the $20 million question. That's what I was just explaining. In the lawyers across the state are divided on it. Again, there are some great things that clean up some of the strange processes we were having to go through that are not controversial. But the real controversial issue is that definition of sex. Does it include gender identity and sexual orientation, or is it just biological sex? Yeah, it's clear that Title IX applies to discrimination on the basis of sex, right? And other things, but discrimination on the basis of sex. What the Title IX new regs wanted to do is to say sex not only includes biological sex, male, female, but also they wanted it to prohibit discrimination against students based on if the discrimination was based upon transgender, or gender identity or sexual orientation. So, yes. Well, actually, the Biden administration in the arguments said this doesn't apply. Is not saying that and this is an argument, they're saying, we're not saying that this is a rule that says a transgender female can play female sports. That's not what this rule is. It says you can't discriminate against. I understand it, and everybody and the argument back is, oh yeah, that's what you're trying to make this federal law. You're trying to allow transgender kids to play sports that are the opposite of their biological sex. That's the argument. It's thick. So, yeah.
As we said, stay tuned.
Yeah.
The drama will continue.
Thank you. Oh, one more update. I
Okay.
apologize,
Okay.
Mr. Taylor. One more update, HR updates. I wanted to allow Ms. Thompson to kind of talk to the board about what we have opening, compare and contrast from the following years. So I think she was able to put some data together. So thank you.
Thank you. Good evening, board. So we have pulled the current numbers as of today. And so as of today, we have hired 95 brand new licensed and classified employees. And we've had 56 internal transfers of employees between departments and employees between schools, which equals 151 total new hire transfer folks we've touched this summer. Now, that's in contrast to last summer, actually last school year, for the whole year, we touched 383 applications for new hires and transfers. So we are much reduced at this point in time than we have been in the past. So of the folks that we have hired and transferred who are licensed employees, they have a teaching license or counselor's license, admin license. There are 97 of those folks. And we've got 34 licensed positions currently posted. Within those, 6 of those are exceptional children's teachers, which is a big piece of work that Dr. Ashbrook and her EC team and the HR team have really been digging in. Kim's been sending out lots and lots of social media posts, trying to get some more applicants for those positions. We have 3 math teachers posted currently, 7 elementary postings, 1 science, a couple of CTE, and then some miscellaneous pieces. Within our classified, with 54 new hires and transfers, we also have 47 classified positions open, and that includes teacher assistants. For TAs, we have 7 exceptional children's TA positions open. Most of those are TA bus drivers, and then 8 regular ed TA bus drivers. Cafeteria, we've got 16 cafeteria employee positions open, 8 Quest that are program coordinators and assistant program coordinators, so the folks that run the Quest programs at each school, and then only 4 custodians. I'm really proud of Devin. He has been working hard to get custodians in and signed up. So we've got a ways to go, but we had much less turnover this summer. And we were talking yesterday in our department, it just feels really weird. Normally at this point in time, our alternative entry beginning teacher program starts Monday next week. And we'd have 10 to 12 of those folks. And I think we have maybe 3. And right now we only have 24 total beginning teachers signed up. So we'll have a much smaller group this year. Last year we had close to 50 at the start of the school year. So it's half of what we normally see. Now with a lot of these positions, we probably will end up with alternative licensed staff members, and so I see that growing, but that's kind of where we are right now. It's much reduced from where we have been in previous seasons.
Good news.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Ms. Davis, if you will now conduct our public comment section of our meeting.
Good evening. Dr. Kimberly Turk. This evening, I would like to tell you about Dr. Charles Faust, who was selected as the Southeast Region Superintendent of the Year for the 24-25 year. He has been an educator for over 20 years and had been the helm of New Hanover County for the last 4 years. helping them become the 15th district in the state out of 115 districts, with 7 of his schools being ranked in the top 100 in North Carolina. During his tenure, 90% of the New Hanover schools met or exceeded growth, and 14 of those schools increased a letter grade. 5 schools were removed from the low-performing list. He also worked with Cape Fear Community College and UNCW to provide more options for students, and one of the New Hanover elementary schools was named a National Blue Ribbon School. Those accomplishments did not stop a partisan school board from firing Dr. Faust on July 2nd, a year after they had extended his contract for 4 years. Although they did not provide any justification for their decision, it appears to be based on Dr. Faust being a Democrat and some comments on a district survey, although they did ignore the comments disparaging the school board and their actions. The vote to terminate Dr. Faust's contract was done while only part of the board was in attendance, and the 2 members who were absent have said they were unaware of the action that was going to be taken. The New Hanover Republican Party released a statement on July 3rd saying they were thrilled Dr. Faust would no longer be running the school system, and mentioned the priorities of radical Democrats running school systems, such as flags representing radical gender ideologies replacing the American flag, kids being taught to be racist by teaching that skin color defines you as being an oppressor or repressed, and leftist propaganda replacing the teaching of history and love of country. These are common far-right fear-mongering statements about things that aren't actually happening in schools. The Republican Party also said this firing was possible because they swept the school board race in 2022, making it clear this was a partisan decision rather than one based on sound educational policy. The district survey referencing Dr. Faust's firing did show that 72% of the respondents did not feel there was an atmosphere of trust and mutual respect in the district. 80% of the respondents said they disagree that the board was in touch with realities and challenges that teachers and the public schools face. Comments on the survey included one saying the board is focusing on banning books in our classrooms and limiting what we put up on the wall, while our main issues are phone use, tardiness, skipping, behavior referrals, and student apathy. Dr. Stover has the support of Catawba County educators. I urge our school board to watch the chaos in New Hanover County.
Good evening, Chair, Board, Dr. Stover, Cabinet, and guests. I am Julia LaRochelle. This year will be my 30th year in Catawba County Schools. And I am proud to say that. I've been here many years, and I am also, this year, I've been elected as the president of our Catawba County Association of Educators, which is our local unit for the North Carolina Association of Educators. And I just wanted to express thanks and appreciation to our board and to Dr. Stover. Since I have been here for many years, maybe not as many as some, but through those years, we have gone through several superintendents. Some were better than others, but I can honestly say that Dr. Stover has been one of our best. He has been an exceptional superintendent for Catawba County Schools. He listens, is involved, and is a wonderful leader for us. He truly cares for our students and staff, teachers, administrators, staff. They welcome him into their classrooms, into their school buildings, and he is very involved and engaged with all of the before mentioned. So I just wanted to show appreciation and just encourage you to keep Dr. Stover around for many years, because he does listen and advocates for all students and staff in our county.
Good evening, Board. I thank you for your time. The concern I have is from the meeting last month with the policy that was implemented, where on the book reviews that the vote has to be unanimous of the board for a decision to change. I've served as an elected official in my life. I've served on various boards in my life. Currently serve on boards at church. Most of the time, we all agree. Sometimes we don't. That's life. I may disagree with people on a church decision or any other decision the board that I have. I don't hold a grudge against them. If there's another issue that arises that we agree on, we're going to work on it. But what I don't understand is that the majority of the 4 individuals, and this issue was Dr. Barnett leading this issue, why that was pushed. We have elections for a reason in this country. And you've taken the voice away from the people of this county. If they don't like the leadership of this board, the county commissioner, any of our leaders, then they have the right to make a decision at the ballot box. And that decision was denied. And my topic tonight was leadership, because that was not leadership. That was not unity. You can agree to disagree and still work on the issues. And I think it's been a dog and pony show this last month of all this publicity towards that issue, when we need to focus on how do we get North Carolina the top 20 in teacher pay in this country. How do we do that? Actually going to Raleigh and communicating with legislators instead of rioting in the streets and hollering and screaming and say, hey, we'd like to have a talk with you. Here's the investment we want to make. How are we going to pay for it? Instead of saying we want more money, how are we going to do that? Because it takes a strong economy and revenue to do that. And I urge this board, and if you look at the leadership at the announcement that was made in this country yesterday, I feel sorry for people that are associated with the Democrat Party, because they will not have a choice to make in their nominee for the presidential election. And that's wrong. And that shows you that the democracy is on attack. That a party that says they were willing to defend it, they're not. And that's very sad. So I urge this board to rise to the occasion and show true leadership, because the acts of this last meeting was really uncalled for, and it was nothing proactive that helps curriculum. Because I've got 2 children in this school, and I want the time in the classroom, not to talk about all these other issues. The number one thing I want in the classroom for my children is curriculum time, and that's where the focus needs to be, and it's not. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Davis. And again, thank you for all those who addressed the board and for allowing us to hear your perspective and your opinion on those issues. We do appreciate it. At this time, we will move to our consent item on the agenda, and I will recognize Dr. Stover for that.
Thank you, Chairman Taylor, members of the board. We are asking for our consent items to be approved this evening, and they are in your report that you guys were given last week.
We did get a copy of those consent items, and I think most members have had an opportunity to review them in the electronic packet, and they are also in your hard copy packet. So this time I will entertain a motion relative to the consent items.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we accept the consent items.
Thank you, Dr. Barnett. There is a motion on the table.
I second.
And second by Mr. Sigmund. Thank you, sir. Any further discussion? Motion and second. Hearing none, all in favor of approval of consent items as presented, signify by raising your hand. Thank you. That is unanimous. Ms. Wetzel. And at this time, we will move to our unfinished business section and recognize Assistant Superintendent Dan Moore.
Chairman Taylor, members of the board, Dr. Stover. Quick update on Maven Elementary School. I can tell you that it is going to come down to the wire. We probably will not have access to the gym, the cafeteria, as I described earlier, and may not have access to the media center as well. However, main objective is to utilize the building, make sure that we get in at the start of school, and not have a move either at the end of the first 9 weeks of the semester. a lot of finished work to be completed. You can see there in that first photo on the left, a lot of landscaping. I've had conversations with various board members about landscaping being planted in the midnight and the mid 90-degree temperatures in a drought. I can tell you that they are trying to water those, and they are, I wouldn't say thriving, hopefully we'll get some rain and those plants and grass and trees will thrive. Our second slide shows more toward the back of the cafeteria, fencing posts around the equipment yard where the generator and the switchgear is located, railings located at the rear of the cafeteria where the dumpsters will be located and the loading dock. Our third slide, more ceiling grid and bulkhead being installed in the 400 corridor. You can see there, barrel roof. It's a nice architectural feature there in the media center. It's going to look really nice when it is completed. Casework being installed in the art supply room, and casework in a regular classroom located there on your right-hand side. There is some terrazzo detail, and that really doesn't do it justice because when you peel back that plastic or that paper covering, and we have that all over the school to protect the floor, really is beautiful. They did a good job with that. The VCT flooring shown there in detail on the right-hand picture. Doors are beginning to be installed. You can see marker board and tack board brackets there on that right-hand photo. Partitions being installed, urinals shown in the group toilet for the boys. Water coolers at the corners. You see a custodial closet there on the right-hand side with access as well to the mechanical mezzanine. Kitchen equipment arriving, being placed. You can see that it is now in our kitchen. Mechanical mezzanine work continues. You see insulation there on the left-hand side. A lot of HVAC control work to be done. A lot of electrical work to be done. And then, of course, we have to get our certificate of occupancy, our temporary certificate, and we can begin to move teachers, supplies, and materials as soon as we get that TCO, but we can't allow anyone else into the building. Can't allow employees into the building, only to move those supplies in. Last photo is fire alarm panels and fire extinguisher cabinets also being installed. Still quite a bit of work to do. Hickory Construction is very dedicated. We're pleased with their progress. They're working hard. They're pushing their subs hard to make sure that we have opportunity to be in that building. And I'll be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Mr. Moore, regarding the plants and the landscaping, are you aware if the landscape contractors have any time frame that they're responsible for the plants to replace the plants in the event they don't make it?
That's a great question. In general, there's a year warranty for everything. And we create a punch list. That's what our architect does, Greg Melton with Holland and Hamrick. He will create a list of corrections. It's a lot better to create that list before it's been occupied. It makes it tougher to create that list while the building is being occupied, so there'll be a challenge there. But there should, in general, be 1 year warranty on all equipment. And I would assume that would include landscaping, but I will check and find out. Any other?
How's the gym coming? I know the gym and the cafeteria was two of the things that we thought would be last minute if pushing us.
And they are. We're using, well, I say we, the construction company is using the gym primarily as a staging area. It's housing a lot of equipment. It's housing casework, will eventually house furniture as we begin to place that in classrooms. It will literally be probably the last thing completed because the floor will have to be laid. Then, of course, it will have to be stained. It will have to be coated with gym coat. It will be the last thing. But we have plans. We've got a good plan. We're going to use buses and use the old gym until we gain the new. Karen's done a good job of putting together plans for the use of the cafeteria, housing, being able to prepare our meals there, bring them down. We've experienced that before. We hope to get that cafeteria area viable as quickly as possible because we really don't want to eat in the rooms unless we have to. We try to help with the cleanliness, but the gym will be the last thing, unfortunately.
Any other questions?
I hope to be occupying when we meet again. So
at this time, we will move to the new business section of our agenda. And first is the approval of the 2024-2025 Comprehensive Continuous Improvement Plan and Consolidated Plan and Assurances. And I will not repeat.
Good evening, Board. This is our annual Title I, II, III, and IV grant. So it's an easier name. So it's just the Title I, II, III, and IV grant from the federal government. So on my PowerPoint, the planning budget we received, and in Title I, which is basic programs, we you see the amount, it's 3.6 million, and that is down 32,000. Title II is 581,000. It's down 22,000. Title III is 163,000. We gained $6,000, almost $800 there. And Title IV, we have 268,000, and we gained 19,000 there. The biggest deficit we have is in the Title I, because the state was deducted $10 million from the feds, but that was nationwide. Every state was deducted federal money for Title I. That was unexpected. We were not expecting that much of a cut. So Catawba County's cut is there, as you see. So the strategic plan, which Mr. Miller will talk about in a few minutes, is used to help with our needs and how we're going to spend the money. And then I created the self-assessment, the comprehensive needs assessment, as you can see here, where we, and if you click on that, if you have access to that, I can't click now, but it shows our data and where our needs are, and that will directly relate to what we're going to spend the money on. And the goals and strategies are using the strategic plan, and I just have to tie everything we spend to one of the goals in the strategic plan. So that's there for your review. What we plan on spending the Title I money on, and Title I money, as you probably know, has to do with the low-income schools, free and reduced lunch. We serve in Catawba County elementary schools only for those who are eligible. A school is eligible if they are 35% and higher with free and reduced lunch. In the past, we've had 15 schools. Sherrills Ford's been the only one. Sherrills Ford will join the Title I categorization for this year. So all of our elementary schools this coming year will be Title I schools. So that also deducted how much money the schools get because we added a school and got less money. So we have to spread the money we have by an extra school. So that also reduced their funding that they're going to get at the school level. Some of the things that they're going to use the money on, of course, most of it goes to employees, and that's classroom teachers to reduce class size. So they hire additional teachers in addition to the state allotments that they receive. Academic facilitators at the elementary schools, some TAs, tutors, bus monitors, and other positions as determined by the schools. This year, the tutors are going to be drastically reduced because of the money, the cut in our money. We are okay with all of our full-time employees. We're able to still fund all those, so that's always good, but the part-time employees are going to be reduced. Also, we'll spend it on Title I schools, supplies and materials, professional development, conferences, workshops, and then the subs for teachers to attend that. Computers, that should be computer equipment, technology devices and software, and then STEM equipment and furniture. But as I said, I would say 85 to 90% will go to people this year. There will not be much left over for anything else. Also for Title I, we have district set-asides that we take off the top that we keep for the district level, and that's the Title I crate software, which is where the schools are required to document all their artifacts that they're required to be Title I. Transition to kindergarten supplies and materials, we take out of Title I. Homeless students, we are required by the federal government to spend some money there for homeless students, and that goes to mostly transportation of the homeless students. Parental engagement activities, that takes care of our 2 pack nights that we have each year. This was deleted, but it's not on your copy, so I apologize. At-risk coordinator is going to be budgeted out of another fund. I deleted it out of my live Google, and this is not live. So we can mark through the at-risk coordinator. We're taking that out of another fund. And then the private school equitable share. This year, we have to offer Title I services to all of the schools in our district if they have students attending their school that attends a Title I element, that lives in a Title I elementary school in our district. We do that every year. They always decline services. Tree of Life, which is located in Hickory City, elected to take their equitable share. They are educating 6 students who live in our Title I school districts in the elementary level. So we will provide them their equitable share, which is going to equal about a little over $4,000. So it's not a lot of money. By the time we take administrative costs out of there, it'll be less than $4,000. So that's new for this year. Title II is mostly PD. We are paying our instructional coaches this year from Title II to provide PD for the whole district. It also pays for the Beginning Teachers Institute, mentors, tuition, testing, licensure renewal, reimbursements come out of Title II, professional development, some online Catawba salaries are paid there, and the crucial conversation training is paid out of Title II. Continued out of Title II, various science, math, STEM, admin, ESL conferences and trainings, the aspiring administrators, academy. We have to put in a reduced class size teacher there, but in the past, we've never used that money we've never had to. This year may be different with Title I being reduced. We don't know yet. Some pre-K PD, letters facilitator PD, curriculum development stipends, mileage reimbursement. Again, private schools. Private schools are also eligible for an equitable share of Title II. However, it's a little bit different. The only ones who can ask for our Title II are actually the private schools that are housed in our district, the buildings that are within the Catawba County School District. They've always declined. This year, Tabernacle elected to have an equitable share. So after calculation, they will receive a little over $13,000 of Title II to provide PD for their students. And we're working to arrange that. This is the first time, so it's a learning process. Title III is English as a second language. Dr. Green hires 4 ESL teacher assistants with her money and a part-time ESL lead teacher. And as you saw, that increased. And that's probably due to our population of ESL students drastically increasing in the past year. Title IV, we will spend Title IV on online Catawba teachers, the Practice ACT for the high schools, Dibbles, which is a progress monitoring tool for K-8. Well, no, 4-8. Imagine Learning Software, which is ESL. The STEM West partnership, we have annual contract with them. Elevation, ESL software, and Off to Class is also an ESL software. Also out of Title IV, the ECATS access for all of our 504s. Safe Visitor software, which is the new IdentiKid for all of our schools. A digital citizen software, panic and safety gates, and some equipment for online Catawba will all come out of Title IV. In Title IV, we have to spend it in three categories: well-rounded students, safety, and technology. So that's why you see some safety things there, because we have to spend 20% of that on safety. Any questions?
So from an outsider looking in, Mr. Sigmund, would you say the biggest, like with the cut in Title I funds that you showed, the reduction in assistance is going to absorb most of that shortfall?
The reduction in tutors.
In tutors?
Yes,
Tutors.
yes. On that and this extra money they had for supplies and materials and software and things like that,
Right.
that all of our full-time employees are okay. They're good to go. Maybe one or two schools maybe right there on the edge,
Right.
but they're still good to go. We'll maintain all of our employees. Now going forward, we may need to start the discussion for those schools that are close to reduce by one for the 25-26 school year. But we'll look at that. We're meeting in August with finance, one-on-one with principals to see how they want to spend their money and where that's going to put them. But yes, the shortfall will be taken with all the extra money they had for supplies, software, and things. But they will still be able to do their software because they have textbook funds.
Any other questions for Mr. Sigmund? Thank you for your presentation. Do we, yes, we need to, now that we've heard Mr. Sigmund's presentation, I'll entertain a motion to approve the 2024-2025 Comprehensive Continuous Improvement Plan and Consolidated Plan and Assurances. I did it that time.
Mr. Chair, I move that we approve the Comprehensive Continuous Improvement Plan as it's been presented.
Thank you.
A second.
We have a motion by Dr. Barnett, second by Mr. Settlemeyer. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of approval of the plan signify by raising your hand. Unanimous, thank you.
Thank you.
At this time, we will hear from Karen Barrier on consideration of additional schools for Community Eligibility Program, or CEP.
Good evening. I have a little bit of news on CEP. So the state has received a grant which allows us to increase community eligibility provision schools, meaning all of the students eat for free. And I am asking if you are interested in participating in this grant, and we would be able to add Mountain View Elementary School, Snow Creek Elementary School, Maiden Middle, and St. Stephen's High School. One piece of information that's important is these 4 schools can participate in this grant for 1 year. It's not a guarantee that we're going to receive the grant money for next school year. And I just found that out today. So, but what I do know is based on numbers and doing a little bit of information and talking to the principals, Mountain View would be the only one we would have to remove if we do not receive the grant for next year. So if we do, we keep moving forward for 4 years, and hopefully that's the case. And I think that's where we're moving to in the future, and that's what the state and USDA wants to see. So with your permission, I would like to add these schools, hoping that we receive the full grant from the state.
Okay, you've heard the request from Ms. Barry, and thank you for the work you've done on that. Questions or motions?
I make a motion that we accept.
Motion has been made to accept the additional schools for Community Eligibility Program funds. Is there a second?
Mr. Chair, I'll second that.
Okay, motion and second. Any discussion about this item? Hearing none. All in favor of approval of the additional schools for Community Eligibility Program funds signify by raising your hand. Again, that is unanimous. Thank you.
Thank you.
Again. Now, Mr. Sharp will Seek approval of the 2024-2025 renewal quote for class-linked license.
Mr. Chair, Vice Chair, members of the board, I'll stand in front of you today asking for approval for ClassLink, as you see in front of you. ClassLink, if you use a Chromebook, which most of you do, when you first log in, you'll notice that that is actually ClassLink. We call it CCS Engage. It's kind of a marketing piece for us, but that is ClassLink. So everything we do is built within ClassLink. All icons, what they call single sign-on solutions. So when we have kinders or seniors log into ClassLink, they have their own icons. They click on it, automatically signs them in to whatever service that it's tied to. And so that makes things a lot easier on their end, on the end user end, but it also makes things a lot easier on administration, on myself, on all the technology department as well, because ClassLink also has what is called ClassLink Roster, which connects into our student information system, which used to be PowerSchool, but is now going to be Infinite Campus. So whenever a change is made inside of Infinite Campus, it automatically sends to ClassLink Roster. ClassLink Roster at that point will then make changes and send that to whatever service that it needs to. So for just to give you an idea of how many services we connect to, last year we were using 38 different products, digital services. It's everything from the digital citizenship all the way through Adminum to anything curriculum based. And what that rostering does is it basically rosters all services, all classes, automatically creates student accounts on those services and so on. Before we had ClassLink, that used to be a manual process, and it resided on the schools. So each school would have to roster their own products manually, which means they'd have to go in and click new user, type in the user's username, type in their password, type in their classes. And when things changed, if a student would move classes, they would have to manually update that. This product allows us to be automatic. Any change within our SIS automatically gets applied to every service that we roster at that point. So it saves countless hours throughout a year. In addition to that, that's the second piece that it does. The third piece is it actually creates all of our student accounts as well. So whenever a student enrolls in Catawba County Schools, they automatically get enrolled inside of Infinite Campus. That information goes to ClassLink OneSync. It will then create the account for Google and for Microsoft for that student, and then automatically assign whatever icons they need for their education at that point online. So we call this our digital ecosystem, but I wanted to make sure that I explained the three big things that ClassLink does for us. So what I have in front of you is the quote altogether, and you will see it is at $54,879. I believe this will be this is the fourth year, I believe. After COVID, I lost track of all time, I'll be honest, how long we've been using ClassLink. So I put this in front of you today, this afternoon for approval. Any questions?
Will this be paid for from technology funds?
Yes. Yes, this will be technology funds between state funds and local funds. It's one that we project. I do a budget projection every March, and this is one of the top ones I put in to project for.
Two questions.
Sure.
Is this yearly?
It is an annual, yes.
And is the price changed? Is it went up, down,
I
same?
believe it went up just a little bit, just like everything has in the digital world. But it's only, I think it's a little over $1,000 that went up from last year. Good questions.
Any other questions? Hearing none, I will entertain a motion on approval for the quote for ClassLink's license.
Mr. Chair, I make the motion that we accept the quote for ClassLink.
Thank you.
I second.
Ms. Richards, We have a motion by Ms. Richards, second by Ms. Teague. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor of approval of the plastic quote, please signify by raising your hand. Thank you.
Thank you.
This time I'll recognize Dr. Stover for approval of the 24-25 quarterly student fundraising activity.
All right, thank you, Chairman Taylor, members of the board. This is our first quarter fundraising. They are all in your packet. And I do ask for your approval for those this evening. Just a reminder that is one school-wide fundraiser is allowed, and then the clubs, 2 additional in high school, and the 1 additional in elementary and middle. And I will thank our schools and PTOs and everyone else who takes a lot of time for that, because we couldn't do it without their funding and their help and support. So thank you.
Yes, thank you. And that was in the packet. You hopefully had a chance to look over that. If not, there is a hard copy in your packet. These are the requests from the individual schools for the first quarter of this school year. These are the things that they have requested. Any questions? I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion, we approve it.
Okay, Mr. Sigmund has made the motion to approve the quarterly fundraising for the first quarter 24-25. Ms. Teague. All in favor, please signify by raising your hand. Now we will hear from Miller, first for 4 different items. Miller, the 24-25 Catawba County Schools Center.
Thank you, Chairman Taylor and board members. This is, again, just a draft of the proposed strategic plan for the next 5 years. The process started off, we identified stakeholders, and those were teacher assistants, teachers, administrators, both principals and assistant principals, district office personnel, all came together, and we conducted an exercise where each person in the room identified 3 to 4 areas that they felt like Catawba County Schools should prioritize over the next 5 years. And so through the course of the exercise, we would continue to pair up, and you had to talk with your partner or partners as we continue to pair up to pare down to those priority areas that you could agree upon. And so the whole group, once we had conducted the exercise, they came up with the following 4 priority areas. Safety, integrity, and well-being is one. Student development and achievement is a second one. Recruitment and retention, the third. And stakeholder relationships is the 4th priority area that was identified. So once that was complete, we sent a survey out to our stakeholders that were part of this process, and they could choose which area they would like to focus on or be a part of. And so they sent that survey back. We were able to give each stakeholder either their first or second choice of priority areas. So then we met together, once again, broke up into those priority groups, and those priority groups were charged with 1, creating a purpose statement for their priority area, creating 2 to 3 goals for their priority area, and then the strategies that would be put in place to try to accomplish the goals for the area. What you received a few weeks ago for your review was the work from those stakeholders. And again, tonight, we're not asking for approval of the plan. We're just here to present the plan and then give you a chance to offer any feedback that you would like to give us. I do know one thing, when I sent out the document last week, you can make some comments
one of the concerns that was raised was about SMART goals. And we modeled this strategic plan from what we saw out of Mooresville Graded School District. Not that theirs is right or wrong or anything like that. We just kind of liked it. So what we went back and we did, and I say we, and I give credit to Mr. Moore, Ms. Thompson, and Ms. Jordan, Dr. Stover, is we went back in and we created SMART goals for each priority area. So if the board wanted to review those goals and compare them to the original goals that you all saw, you can do that and give us feedback on which of those you prefer. Again, a SMART goal is more measurable. There's a number to it. So you're trying to reach that number. And again, if you look at what I sent you, I think it was later last week, that live Google Doc, you'll see the SMART goals have been added. They're in gray underneath the goals that are listed there for each priority area. They're not on the screen, obviously, but you do have that document, and you have the ability to go in and see the SMART goals versus the original. Again, we welcome any feedback that you would like to provide. We'll go back based on the feedback that we receive, and we'll revise the plan and bring it back next month. And if we feel good about it, we'll seek approval. If not, we'll go back. We're not under any type of time crunch here. So that's good. We would like to try to get this in place August or September. And I think we can do that. But we do value your feedback, and we want to get that so we can go back and revise the plan.
Thank you, Mr. Miller. And for those that are unaware, this strategic plan essentially is the roadmap for where we want to be as a district over the next 5 years. And not only the map, but not only where we're going, but how we're going to get there. And I think that was, Dr. Barnett, I think you mentioned the measurable. I think SMART is an acronym. I know the M is measurable. I forgot what the other four was.
Measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound.
So some way that they can be assessed and our progress can be assessed. So thank you for the work you've done on it. Other questions or comments?
Just wanted to double check also, I'd already talked with you, Mr. Miller, earlier about, so the district plan will not be in NC Star anymore.
Yes, ma'am. That is correct. Unless you direct to do otherwise. But it's not required to be an NC Star. School plans are required.
And I think you told me schools will have SMART goals in order to fit the NC Star format.
Yes, ma'am. That is correct.
Is there a reason for taking the district plan out of just because it's not mandated? Is there a cost associated? Or?
Yeah, and speaking to a previous member of cabinet, advised just you don't need to put it in NC Star, and just advise not to. We can, doesn't matter. And really, what we did, the work over the previous 3 years. We really did most of that work once the plan was created and approved 3 or 4 years ago. The goals and the strategies were put in spreadsheets, and that's really what we worked from. Really wasn't necessarily, it was in NC Star, but we didn't really work from NC Star because we're not required to do that.
Other questions or comments?
Just wanted to get Mr. Miller's advice. I'm just so used to my whole professional life. I've lived with SMART goals. It's hard to get past that. But how would we as a board, I know we have the opportunity that you've given us some SMART goals, that the cabinet's worked on some SMART goals, and I see them in here. But if we didn't go that direction, how would we as a board determine what progress we're making? I mean, I think it's so important, as we heard from our public tonight, for us to know that we are working on curriculum issues and that we're progressing in those areas. And I just wondered what your advice is on how we would monitor those otherwise.
That's a great question. I think what we were looking at is the strategies that are listed in the plan. It would be very easily to determine whether those strategies had been implemented or not.
And so I think that was how we were looking at it. But again, I think the SMART goal is a great idea. If we want to make sure we have that number there, that measurable goal, we're fine with that, Dr. Barnett. We're glad to make that change. Yeah.
And as Mr. Miller said, this is still a work in process, so you'll bring this back to us next month with more updates.
Yeah, any other feedback, again, is welcome.
Hearing none, is there? We'll wait for next month to hear your update on that and let you move on to the information on the Catawba County Schools professional development schedule.
Yeah. So I believe it was last month, there was a question about the PD schedule, and maybe some board members might want to attend some PD sessions, just to drop in and say hello or be a part of it. Either way, we would welcome you. So the PD schedule is in your packet, and you're welcome. Again, any PD or meeting that you see on there, you're welcome to drop in or be a part of that. We're glad to have you. So I just wanted to share that information with you. The third item that I have is A to Z reading. And actually, we have a revision, and this came, I believe, today. The actual total is now under $30,000, which we all know does not require board approval. You're welcome to approve anyway, but it is under 30 now. We got the latest, again, quote today. And individual schools pay for this, and it's reading passages that we use in mainly our K2, K3 classrooms. And they use Title I money to pay for A to Z reading. So, Chairman Taylor, I would refer to you whether you want to put this to a vote or we can move forward since it is under 30,000, whatever you would prefer.
Would anyone feel inclined to make a motion, or just do you want to keep it consistent with our policy and allow them to use that latitude to make this purchase? Carry on.
Thank you. So we're always trying to get a better price in C&I, so it worked out for us today. The fourth thing is learning-focused schools, professional development. And we received $116,000 from the state for ATSI schools. And we have to encumber this money by September 30th. So we've got a few things that'll be really inexpensive that were asked for, especially from ESL, EC, which is why most of our schools that are classified as ATSIs because of the EC subgroup, they buy so many of their programs from EC funds. We're really trying to find a way to spend this money, because if we don't spend it again or encumber it by September 30th, we'll lose it. So one of the things that we talked to our principals about was rekindling a relationship we've had with learning-focused schools really over the past 5 or 6 years. And so we have a plan that we would like to bring to you tonight. And this PD would be to the tune of $47,219. And it would include a scaffolding PD that our instructional coaches and our academic facilitators would be a part of. That's a one-day training, includes the books and flip charts that go with it. And then we would have 3 training days for our principals. It would be 1 for our middle and high. And then because our elementary group is so large, we'd split those up and do a day apiece with the groups that we have split. And also we would do 3 days for our APs, like our principals, 1 day for middle and high school, and then we would split our elementary into 2 groups. And then we also have any schools that are classified as low performing, which that will come out probably early September. Those schools would receive 3 days
of instructional rounds from Don Merlot, who is one of the leaders of learning focused schools. He's been in our district many times. He's worked with our principals before. We value his input, so that would allow Don to come in to any low performing school 3 times throughout the year and do instructional rounds with CNI staff, the administrators at the school, and then provide us feedback with what he sees his eyes. So we're getting quite a few days from Learning Focused in this plan, and we'd like to ask your approval to spend the $47,219 for the PD of Learning Focused schools.
You've heard Mr. Miller's request for the approval for the development. Learning focused training in the future. Questions or?
Is this for does all the schools use this or just?
Great question. So the money has to be spent on ATSI schools, okay? But I think we've come up with a good plan where all schools can benefit. So we're not just going to include the ATSI or the principals of the ATSI schools. We can include all principals. As long as the ATSI principals are part of that, I think we're okay.
Move that we approve the $47,000+ for the learning focused professional development that's been presented to us.
Second that.
We have a motion by Dr. Barnett, second by Ms. Richards. Any discussion? All in favor of approval of this request for professional development training, signify by raising your hand. And that is unanimous.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sigel. And Mr. Moore is back with us for approval of a quote from Powerhouse Recycling for removal of CRT televisions. And this dates me a little bit because I remember being extremely excited about the installation of CRT TV screens in our classrooms about a decade and a half ago. So,
And we are extremely excited about their removal tonight.
time moves on.
Thank you, Chairman Taylor. Members of the board, Dr. Stover, before I have a quote from Powerhouse Recycling in the amount of $47,155 for the removal of 597 CRT TVs with their mount, 3 standalone TVs, and 64 standalone mounts. The good thing about this is that they will remove these and recycle them, and we don't touch them at all. They need to be removed, and I'm thankful for Marty and his crew for helping us find someone that can even perform this service. So I would seek your approval for this quote at this time.
The funds for this, Mr. Moore, where will this 47 come from?
So as part of our capital allocation last year, we requested $75,000 from the commission, and they did fulfill that request. So we're far underneath that. We're very pleased with the price that we received.
Very good. Thank you. Any other questions? Do I hear a motion?
I move that we accept the quote from Powerhouse Recycling for the removal of the CRT TVs.
Thank you. We have a motion on the table. Is there a second? Thank you, Mr. Settlemeyer. The motion and second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of approval of the quote for Powerhouse Recycling to remove the CRT televisions, signify by raising your hand.
Thank you.
Thank you. And at this time, we have been in session for just about an hour and a half. We're getting ready to go into section on approval of amendments to our board policies. And then a couple of items after that. So what's the pleasure of the board relative to taking a short break? I hear you see nodding heads. So let's take 10 minutes and approximately 10 minutes, reconvene at 25 till 8. Thank you all for returning in a timely fashion here as we get to item number 10. I will point out, Mr. Moore really made me feel old. Those TVs he was talking about were put in the late 90s. I was still in the classroom. They were square, not long and rectangular. So it has been a minute. So, Ms. Davis,
Yeah.
take it away.
Okay, so school safety, the first policy deals with school safety. The changes there just came out while the proposed changes from the North Carolina School Boards Association came out with regard to Title IX. And I will show you at another board meeting what those proposed changes are and highlight the controversial ones. But this was also included as sort of an emergency update. The school safety policy was, and the statutes were amended to require the inclusion of threat assessment teams and the structure of them and the training requirements for the team members, the actual type of team members, and the requirement of written reports and information sharing and assessment, the actual threat assessment protocols. That is now we're required to put it in the form of a policy. The good news is earlier in the spring, I think it was, when this was talked about at a conference, I emailed Dan Moore, who confirmed that we have all of these changes in place already. Mr. Moore keeps track with Center for Safer Schools, and they are very progressive when it comes to threat assessment teams. I will point out just some key points, and that is that the teams are required to consist of individuals with expertise in counseling, instruction, school administration, and law enforcement. And when practicable, at least one school psychologist. Now, that's not required, but it's encouraged when it's practical, and we have a high demand for school psychologists. And also one staff member knowledgeable about and experienced with working with students with special needs and those working with students with disabilities. That, I think, is pretty consistent. We do, because those situations are very particular. But I wanted you to know in particular who's required to be on those teams, and we've been complying with that. The training has changed so that the people who are on those teams, it's not changed, it's just the people who are on the teams are required to go through Center for Safer Schools training. And if they come on during the year, they have to be trained within 60 days. So it's usually before the beginning of the school year. Also, the assessment and the intervention that actually occurs or is recommended by this team has to be put in writing in the form of a report. And certain information is shared with the parents of the student who's being assessed and victims that have been threatened to some degree, although you have to comply with FERPA. There are some FERPA exceptions for safety and emergency situations. And then, of course, the threat assessment protocols that the superintendent requires. I hate to say that the administration has gotten pretty good at conducting these assessments. They're very thorough, and I don't think there's any question there's no confusion in how they go about assessing a student. It's not ad hoc. It's truly a protocol that they've been exercising consistently for years now. Sad that we have to. The next policy is responding to complaints. Really, the updates there were just to make sure that in the first section that we pointed out, responding to complaints, this policy would apply to situations except where there are specific policies dealing with a disagreement with a policy. For example, a complaint a grievance, which is next, complaint or grievance to the board could fall under responding to complaints. It could fall under a grievance, student grievance, employee grievance. Or if it relates to student discipline and an appeal, it'll be governed by that separate policy, not these. So that's the point of listing these exceptions and sort of updating them. And you can see that discrimination, harassment, and bullying are added to that, and because they're actually done according to those individual policies. The next two policies, which really have they dovetail together, are employee grievance procedure and student grievance procedure. Some language was added to beef up and always encourage informal resolution. Most of the language that you see in red or strike throughs here are rewording or rearranging things within the body of the policy. It's not substantive changes. It's, for example, if you look at the original policy, the whole section D, general requirements, used to be E or F. And it was really no way to show that on here, but the recommendation was remove that whole section to section D. So it's just a reformatting of the policy. The timeline for filing the grievance, I will tell you that there were some dates in here saying requiring a 15-day turnaround. And it's my recommendation that the minimum turnaround on even when a principal is investigating a grievance, that it be 30 days. And the reason, at most, and the reason for that is sometimes these investigations take weeks. And even we've struggled in the past and requested extensions when lawyers are involved just to arrange a hearing in the past. So I'm suggesting changing those. You can see wherever it says 15 days, changing that to 30. And as far as the actual hearing, scheduling of a hearing and the board's report, that has an outside of 60. So there's really nothing. The only other, to me, I think it's a very positive recommendation for a change, is mandatory appeals and discretionary appeals to the board. So basically, these two chart out when a person has a grievance that falls into these policies. It first can be handled by the principal. If that's not possible, the superintendent. If that's not possible, then it could be someone else, or it could go to the board. And then at each level, there's an appeal process. You can appeal if you don't like the principal's decision. You can appeal the superintendent or request the superintendent review. If you don't like the superintendent's decision, you can appeal to the board. So in the statute, and this has always existed, you just had to go to the statutes to read it. But not every, you can say in your policy that everything is appealable to the board if you want to. But by statute, not everything is appealable to the board. The only things that are appealable to the board is if the grievant has alleged a violation of a specified federal or state law, federal or state regulation, state board of education policy, or board policy procedure, or has alleged that a specific decision of a school official adversely affects the grievance employment status. Those are the only ones that require an opportunity to appeal to the board. It's a mandatory appeal process, and it's by statute. Any other discretionary appeals are up to the board. So if a person appeals the superintendent's decision and it's a discretionary appeal, then the superintendent would say to the board, they've asked to appeal it to you. It's discretionary. Do you want to accept the hearing? And the board can vote to say no or yes. So that, I think, is very clear now for the public. It's always been the law, but it was just in the statutes. You had to know where the statutes were to read it. Again, there's similar changes in both policies. The last two deal with federal law, and I will say they're both very serious, and our Human Resources Department does a really good job of dealing with these two policies. Workday and overtime There aren't many changes, just the definition of the week, whether it ends on a Saturday or ends on a Sunday. And I think we're all clear it ends on Saturday at midnight. Just some changes in a couple references, for example, human resources versus versus personnel office. But the one thing I will point out that you need to be aware of, and administration should always be aware of, is that the overtime rule is designed to protect employees and to keep employers above board with regard to the work required of employees. The significance of that it is, in my opinion, especially in the school system, with the retirement system that we have, the significance is that work or overtime work should not be consistently engaged in, because what the overtime that any overtime pay that a person makes does not contribute to the retirement system necessarily. And so that could be considered something that is damaging to the employee. Also, it's damaging, can be damaging to the school system, because the requirement is that overtime is paid in time and a half increments. It can be paid in compensatory time off or in cash. That's what this policy allows. However, when a person retires or leaves the employee of the school system, that has to be paid out. And if it's a large chunk, then it could hurt the school system as far as financially. It's something they necessarily may not have expected. So that's why it's significant with regard to protocols being in place and rules and regulations about actually giving an employee permission to work overtime and keeping track of it. The other thing I'll point out, and this is flexible within the policy, so if you want to change it, you can. It's been this case for probably 21 years. It's been consistently 80 hours of overtime that can be accumulated as compensatory time. That's the total amount this policy allows to be accumulated for one employee. That employee can't have more than 80 hours of overtime. They otherwise have to be paid out for it and only keep a bank of 80 hours. Now, you can change that to whatever you want to, the board. I wouldn't recommend, some districts, North Carolina School Board Association recommends that you could go up to 240 hours. But that's a question you'd want to ask finance, I think, because that becomes burdensome, in my opinion. But right now, the limit is at 80 hours, and you can change that later, or if you want to change it now. But I recommend keeping it at 80 hours. Just to point out, about 20 years ago, there was a movement across the nation where law firms were literally targeting, and I don't know if Dr. Stover remembers this, or if you were in the classroom, targeting school systems because of violations of workday and overtime rules. And so it's serious. The damages can be incredible for school systems. Family and Medical Leave Act. Again, these are all changes that are required under the federal law. You can see, again, like for example, some of this is just referencing to new statutes, defining things under the military service exigency rule, and then moving stuff, for example, on page 2, subparagraph 5 was literally moved to the end of the policy. So there's not significant changes in this. If you have any questions, I'll be glad to answer them. But that's all based on federal law, and the changes that are required are all based in federal law. That's it. Yes. Yes. Uh-huh. Okay. Okay. Thank you for that information.
One question I had too, Ms. Davis, relative to item number 5, the 7.4820 workday and overtime. So what's the procedure for monitoring that? Because I'm aware of at least one situation where a new principal inherited essentially employee with a significant amount of overtime, which employee subsequently retired, and that overtime had to be paid. So I know we say 80 hours, but where are the bumper guards on that?
Well, this policy requires that all overtime work be approved by the supervisor. So if it was an employee at a school and the supervisor is the principal, and so in order for that person to be accumulating overtime, they would have to get approval by their supervisor, the principal. The messy part about the Fair Labor Standards Act is that we can put in there all day long that that's the rule. But there's another rule that even if the person doesn't give permission, the supervisor, the employer / supervisor cannot suffer the person to work, which means even if they don't give permission, but they do give a workload to the employee that cannot be done in the 40 hours, but they require them to get it done, but they won't give them written permission, then they have suffered them to perform work. And so that's the messy part that can't necessarily be, well, it may slip through, because if that person is saying it takes me 40 hours to get all, or more than 40 hours to get all this stuff done, and the principal just kind of turns their head or just doesn't even think about it, that person is suffering to work. And so in my opinion, so what should happen under the policy is the supervisor should be keeping track of that periodically. How that's done on a principal level, that's a question to ask maybe the training and personnel. And
I could kind of brief you quickly on that. Is monthly Carla does a report and then lets our cabinet members know. And then she also lets our principals know. And then we ask them to work towards removing that. In other words, taking days off. We always suggest, our leave days, the non-student days is what we always suggest. And certainly any time they have an appointment or anything like that, to use their comp time before they use annual leave. So we do that monthly. And Carla, would you like to add to that?
Thank you.
You're welcome. And I just need a motion to approve those changes to the policy.
Okay, so are there other questions relative to any of the other items? Hearing none, I will entertain a motion that we approve the proposed amendments to the Board of Education policies as presented by Ms. Davis. Yeah, I'm entertaining that motion.
I move that we approve the updates to the policies that have been provided to us.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion and second. Any further discussion on board policy amendments? Hearing none, all in favor, please signify by raising your hand. And that is unanimous, Ms. Wetzel. That brings us to item number 11, which was an adjustment to this evening's agenda: approval of quote from B&L Telephone for new intercom system, Clyde Campbell Elementary. And again, Mr. Moore, thank you.
Chairman Taylor, members of the board, last Thursday, Clyde Campbell's intercom system received a lightning strike and is no more. So we would request approval of our proposal from B&L Telephone in the amount of $864.90 for the replacement of this intercom system. That is also something that we will seek claim with our insurance company as well, as this was an unforeseen occurrence. There was also some damage to our fire alarm panel, but we think that we can fix most of that. So I'll be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Mr. Moore, regarding the new system, and I know lightning is lightning, but is this new system going to possibly be less susceptible or more protection if there is
That's a
such?
good question, and I don't have the answer for that, but I do have the answer that our landscaping at Maiden Elementary does have a 1-year warranty, but I will seek an answer to that question as well. I would ask Lynn Hedspeth that. He probably would know. 1 year. That's it. That's all of it. It's under the general contractor's warranty. Yes. But I'll try to find out about damage or susceptibility to lightning damage for this intercom system.
So you're saying with the intercom system, you don't know whether the insurance is going to cover it or not?
They typically will. It will be a claim that we will file.
Yes, sir.
And there is a deductible that has to be met. In the
Right.
system that meets that deductible.
Right. Right.
Be fully compensated, but most of it will be.
Yeah, okay.
All good questions and good news on the landscaping. Do we have I'll entertain a motion on the approval of the request for the intercom.
I make a motion, we approve the B&L Communications quote for the intercom system. $52,864.90.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Settlemeyer, for the motion and Ms. Teague for the second. Any further questions or discussions? Hearing none, all in favor of approval of the B&L quote for the new intercom system at Clyde Campbell signify by raising your hand. And that is unanimous. And the final item on our adjusted agenda was the discussion for Mr. Scott Durian, I think was the gentleman's name, the resident of the Sherrills Ford community. He had emailed all board members. I think he had also contacted the Utilities Commission, the Department of Transportation, among other government entities. His main request is that we consider advocating on behalf of his position, as Duke Power does construction on a new power facility there above the existing steam plant. They're going to have a significant amount of traffic on Island Point Road, which is immediately across from Cheryl's Ford. He expressed concern, obviously, about the traffic in the area, which I think we all are aware of. We've discussed. You all had a chance to read the email, see Mr. Durian's request. So again, this is a discussion. Don't know that any action will need to be taken, but what are your thoughts on the matter?
In that information, when we talk about the actual construction, that's one matter. But one of the things that jumped out to me, if it is in fact true, or accurate would be a better word, that they said that there could be employed up to 900 people. And it's going to be a continual flow well after the construction, if you're looking at employing that many people. So, and again, I think you made a good rebuttal or remark in that that while we are concerned about that, that's not really a matter, that we have a whole lot of control of right now, which I agree with.
I mean,
Short of sending a letter saying, hey, we have concerns about traffic issues, because it comes out right at where our school exits and enters. What can we do other than that? That's about all we can do, with send a letter saying concerns. I feel that we can do as a board.
I know in part of the electronic discussion, I think Duke Power responded with some measures that they were prepared to take. I think instituting like a turnout, to facilitate, I guess, decreasing the amount of backups and those kind of things. But if we look at the proposed growth in that area, just in the new development that we talked about earlier, I don't think we've seen anything yet as far as the traffic that's going to be there. And so, again, I agree with Mr. Abernathy, Mr. Settlemeyer. I share his concern. I just don't know that this body has the authority to act on that in any way. So unless someone does want to direct us to write a strongly worded letter of concern.
The only other thing that I would maybe mention is to, and we've done this in the past, is to maybe the board could do is to contact DOT to ask them to review the board situation in the context of the entrance, exits, that sort of thing. I don't know if they would even, but you could contact DOT and ask them.
That's not a bad idea, but I think that the letter's not a bad idea either, just to like reiterate that there is a school there. I mean, I'm sure some people know, but some people may not know that there is a school there and there is a potential for traffic. Just to let them know that, we are there.
Question or point of order, I guess, if we, using quotations, contact DOT, would that be through our attorney?
However you want to do it, or through maintenance. I know they communicate with them regularly. Yeah, probably to make it, I mean, I'll be happy to, but, and report back. But maintenance deals with them also. We've had assessments done at school, all kinds of schools. One in particular was Murray. I don't know if you remember, we actually had a student killed there, and the school system was consistently, repeatedly asking for a review of the entrance and exits onto the highway. And yep, I'll be more than happy to if you want me.
So could we get Dan Moore or one of his designees to maybe write a letter saying that we have concerns over this?
Would you like to make that in the form of a motion?
I will make that as a motion, that we have Dan Moore, one of his designees, write a letter to Duke Power or DOT to voice our concerns over the traffic that may be at the intersections where our school enters and exits through that one intersection.
I'll second that.
Mr. Abbott.
There was a co-second there. I don't know who beat who to the punch, but I'll let you be the arbiter of that, Ms. Wetzel. So we have a motion and second that our operations department, in consultation with our council, maybe that they write a letter to DOT and Duke Power voicing our concerns about the potential for traffic congestion in that area in lieu of student safety. But any further discussion?
Just wondered, I see in the letter too, they mentioned that Duke Energy is going to meet with the Utility Commission in August. We don't have the date, but we don't meet again I just wondered, could the letter be earlier, that maybe you could distribute it to us to look at prior, as early as possible, before next meeting, just to make it even harder, Mr. Moore, to put a little pressure on it.
Tomorrow would be nice.
Yeah. That we could get it out as soon as possible. Maybe before that meeting with the Utilities Commission.
And again, we could add that to the motion, that it prior to the meeting with the Utilities Commission. All in favor of Mr. Settlemyer's motion, which has been amended and modified. So please signify by raising your hand. Thank you. And again, I think. Yes, sir.
To you right now.
Yes, sir. I think Ms. Richards is going to forward that to you as we speak. I think that brings us to the end of open session. We do have a need for closed session for attorney-client privilege and personnel. So I will now entertain a motion to adjourn our open session and go into closed session.
I make a motion that we adjourn our open session and go into closed session.
I second.
There's a motion and a second. All in favor signify by raising your hand. Thank you. We are now adjourned. We'll give a few moments for the room to clear, and then we will resume. We wait next time for the budget amendment and vote on the contract. I make a motion by Dr. Barnett to approve Dr. Stover's contract, with continued by pending approval of the budget in the next meeting. Second by Mr. Adams. Any further discussion on that? All in favor of Dr. Barnett's motion, signify by raising your hand. And that is unanimous. Well, can we get, will be safe, sorry. Oh, and there is also a request for approval of a raise for not included. How do we word that? Marty, Carla, Ray, and but that was the question was $3,500. We've got a motion relative to that. The only second there, whoever you gave the other one to, get this. All right, so I have a motion and second, any discussion? All in favor of the $3,500 raise? Again, that is unanimous. With that, this is the end of our agenda. I will entertain a motion.
Oh, yeah.
Those for approval. I'm sorry, Mr. I only handed it back to Crystal. I thought that was yes. Prior to entertaining a motion to adjourn, Dr. Stover's asked to address the board.
Yeah, and I want to thank our Board of Education for your support and trust in my leadership and our team's leadership in this district. I just want to say that I try to lead with trust, and I really appreciate more than a contract of anything, but it's each of your individual trust and as a group, your trust. And I want to thank you, and I want to thank you for acknowledging the work of our cabinet. They're incredible leaders, and I'm thankful for them. So I'm very thankful tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Well said. And at this point, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Make a motion that we adjourn.
Second.
Motion's been made and second. All in favor, signify by raising your hand, and we stand adjourned. Thank you all. Good meeting.